What's up, everybody? You're listening to episode 6 of the PS Files, your weekly PlayStation briefing. Each week we explore the games, news, and moves surrounding PlayStation and what it could all signal for you. I'm your host, Marco. Joining me is my good friend and co-host, Pablo, and this week we handpicked 6 PlayStation franchises that we think deserve a damn comeback. And we got 2 franchises that we think should stay dead. So stay tuned for that. Plus, we'll also explore the latest behind-the-scenes news about what went wrong with The Last of Us Factions 2. Pablo, definitely one of our more, nostalgia-driven episodes this week. You know, it's
for sure.
It's been a little ashy on the news front in the world of PlayStation out here. So we're going to apply some balm, some lotion, if you will, to this episode today.
It's good for them to know where our mindset is when it comes to PlayStation, like the things that we like, the things we want to see a comeback for, and the things that we hate. So we'll see that too.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. Yeah, it's true, though. I mean, and I think that's what makes doing a PlayStation podcast fun also, is that not just kind of hanging on to like whatever is in the news, also just kind of taking some time to go back down memory lane and just relive those games, those moments, those memories that make us all lifelong PlayStation fans, or just the fans that stick around. So if that sounds good to you all, keep listening in. If you enjoy what you hear, subscribe to the show. We'd really appreciate it. But let's get rolling, man. We got to talk about the PlayStation classics that we think Sony must bring back. And what we've each done here is we both compiled a list of 3 games each that we think deserve a comeback. We're going to make our case for why we think they deserve a comeback. And then we're going to go through after that and talk about the games that we think should stay dead from PlayStation's list of IP. And that might be a little bit more controversial, I think, of a segment than what we'll do in the beginning, because we're looking at it less from a like, oh, I don't like those franchises, and more along the lines of like, do we think that those really have a place in the modern era of gaming, you know? So no vitriol behind it, no, crazy hot takes just to get rage bait attention. That's not what we do here, just as a preface. So, you know what, Pablo? Why don't you do the honors? Why don't you give us the first game on your list here? Tell me a PlayStation franchise classic that you think should come back and that you think would thrive, and tell me why.
So my first game off rip is Sly Cooper franchise. A little bit of a hot take here. I think Sly Cooper is the most unique conceptually and the most interesting fun game to play out of all the mascot games that PlayStation has. I think the gameplay of it all, I think it's very unique, where it's not a traditional platformer. There's a lot involved in how you go about that game, which I absolutely loved. And I think with the power of the PlayStation, the current PlayStation, I think this Sly Cooper game could actually be absolutely killer. I love this franchise so much. And it's a shame that I can't play these games, really. I don't even think I could play the Sly Cooper collection. The 2013, the most recent one, I could only stream it on PlayStation Plus.
Which is horrible. Yeah. I thought they would have addressed that by now, just giving people a more native way to play those games, because you're right, those are really not only integral to PlayStation's history, but very beloved all these years later. So you're certainly not the only one who would love to see it come back. And I think just seeing more of PlayStation kind of embracing platformers again would be awesome in general, especially after what Astrobot was able to achieve. I think it'd be great just seeing more of those IP get a second shot. And that's one of the ones that I think is really cool, because it wasn't just your traditional platformer. It was definitely adding in some of the cooler, like stealthier kind of, espionage-y kind of elements to it. Nothing too deep or, very systemized like a Metal Gear is, but just it was a really cool twist on a formula that I think had been at that time sort of overdone. And it was a breath of fresh air at that point. So seeing it back in 2026 or beyond would be great.
Yeah, and it had like a specific vibe to it too that kind of stood apart from the other games. So I would love to see that come back.
And that with that art style, oh my God. I could see that. I can visualize it right now and go, oh my God, that's like That's the Pixar dream almost come to life again. But of course, it had its own unique like cell shaded elements too, so it could work so well. It's just a missed opportunity, I really think, for PlayStation. So that's a really good pick.
Every time PlayStation announces a new game and it's not Sly Cooper, they fucking up. They messing up.
Hey man, I'm with you. I'm riding with you on that one. All right, my first pick is Siphon Filter. Siphon Filter, for those of you who are a little younger in the PlayStation space, don't really know too much about it. Third-person stealth action series. You play as a government agent named Gabe Logan. You're tackling these covert ops and these global threats. It's a very early Metal Gear Solid meets Mission Impossible, but with a little bit more grounded and tactical way about it. And to me, I think, Pablo, it's like PlayStation has its own Metal Gear, it just chooses not to use it. It leaves it in the drawer.
Yes.
And that's what really bums me out, because I think there's definitely a white space right now for stealth games again. I mean, Metal Gear's on the comeback, that's for sure, but no one really owns that lane. And I think it'd be cool to see this kind of franchise come back and we get that grounded spy thriller thing again, which would be a nice break from kind of the overblown spectacle that we see lately, or just the typical over-the-shoulder third-person cinematic action games that they typically do. This would be a really nice departure from that. You know, having more contained semi-sandbox-like mission structure where you can kind of tackle it any way you like. A little bit of Hitman elements in there in some capacity. I can see that working out really cool. And just, it's just nice to see a legacy PlayStation IP come back and reinvent itself in a way that opens up possibilities for that genre again, which I really miss. I miss seeing stealth games get the attention they deserve. We're in an era now where Splinter Cell's kind of still up in the air. We don't know what's going on there.
Yeah.
Metal Gear just finally got its legs back under it, which was great, but still a long wait. Deus Ex is gone, which is really sad. We're starving out here for some stealth games, for some espionage games, man. It's
a genre that's beloved, and yet nobody is navigating in it. Nobody's making any games within that genre. It just makes it's confusing to me. Because, like you said, PlayStation has its own version of Metal Gears just sitting there, and they're not doing anything with it,
Yeah. And I understand, like, a lot of people would say, well, stealth games don't always sell the greatest. But, but if you can also say that you are the leader of an entire genre or subgenre, I think that says a lot. Astrobot didn't take the world by storm. Astrobot didn't sell tens of millions of units, but it's the best in class, I would say, at least what we've seen in the last couple of years of platformers. So why couldn't you do the same thing here and own that stealth piece? But here we are. Still waiting, still hoping. But I digress, man.
My other game here is Infamous. Now, I think for me, this is just one of those games that it got some love when it came out, for sure. You know, but I do feel like with Sucker Punch and everything that they've done with Ghost, I think that it's really an interesting pathway here to get this game back, because it could compete with like the Spider-Mans of the world. And again, it's an original IP. I think that that's important here, where PlayStation is dealing a lot in this kind of hell of recycling IP of the last 15 years. But Infamous is one that I think it got the short end of the stick. The PlayStation 4 launch game was really good. Second Son, yeah. But I played it again last year, and I felt like that game kind of still holds up even then. So seeing a new version of that game would be so awesome, dude. And looking at all the lessons that Sucker Punch has learned making newer games, I think that they would implement that into Infamous and make a really, really great game. And I think we need some of that back into PlayStation.
I would also add that it would be cool from a standpoint of getting a game like that, but without a Marvel license attached to it, because it's very much a superhero kind of game, a little bit of the anti-hero vibe going for it too, which it had across all the games in the series. And I think that would appeal to someone like me, who, admittedly, whenever I see a Marvel licensed anything, I'm already going, ugh, because I'm not a huge comic fan. And even if I was, I think the Marvel fatigue has been a big topic of discussion over the last couple of years, just across the films and the TV shows and all that. So having your own original IP that you can kind of nourish and bring back to life, and it's checking the superhero box, but it's not just leaning into the familiar territory that we've seen rinsed and washed to death a million times.
And it carries a lot of the elements that people love about the Marvel series, specifically like X-Men. You know, you have these superpowered people, and you have a government agency that's out to get them, right? And they are able to check that box, but do something on their own and make that, like you said, undoubtedly just original. And I feel like that's something that anybody would love to have in their portfolio. So I hope that they look back at this and they give it another chance.
Certainly hope so, man. Because part of this segment is fun because we get to talk about our favorite PlayStation franchise from years past, but it's also bittersweet because you're like, missed opportunity, McGee. Oh my God, Herman, what are you doing? Yeah. Wake up, man. Let's keep it rolling. My second pick, I have Wipeout. This is a franchise that it's near and dear to me. It's the first PlayStation anything that I ever played when I was younger. Played it at Sound Advice back in the mid-90s, and I was like, what is a PlayStation? What is this experience? And Wipeout was really that wow moment for me that showed me what games can be outside of Paperboy and Mario and Sonic and all the usual suspects. For those of you who are not initiated into this world, it was a futuristic anti-gravity racing series that was kind of built on a mix of Mario Kart and F-Zero. It's kind of what happens if you strip out the cartoony nature of Mario Kart and crank F-Zero up to 11 and make it cooler. This is what you get. It was awesome.
I want to correct you. You said make F-Zero cooler. No, you mean make F-Zero cool for the first time ever.
All right.
Yeah.
See, Pablo's diabolical. Pablo known this man for years. There's just some franchises that Pablo loves to hate. You know, we try to come in here and we know we're cool, but if you talk to him about F-Zero or Borderlands, you're getting the worst of them. I'm letting you know that now.
It's known that F stands for fun, and the number next to it shows how much fun is in a zero.
Everybody knows that. You ain't no good, man.
Everybody know that.
I enjoy F-Zero. I just think it's not Wipeout because Wipeout has more going for it. That's all. I'm not gonna get the Nintendo fans jumping down my throat because of your ass. Yeah, I mean, I love Wipeout, and I think it would be really cool to see it come back because there's no real AAA anti-gravity racer anymore. It's a completely untapped space now. You see indie studios trying to do like spiritual successors to F-Zero over on the Nintendo side, but it's just not the same. So I think it's a missing piece that I think could be cool. I also think it's a great showpiece for hardware. If you think about 120 frames per second, 4K native, haptics, gyro aiming, touch controls. It can check all those boxes for you and be one of those real, like, true, this is why you have a PS6 type of experience, right? I also think it had style going forward. And I think seeing some of that
vibe and a half.
PlayStation's portfolio needs an injection of personality. And I think that Wipeout had its own unique personality. It wasn't just your typical sci-fi something. It had really cool electronic music. It had a sense of culture to it. You felt like it was an actual league that you were participating in with this racing league. So it was just really neat to kind of get in there, get a feel for the world. It's also short session friendly too. It's a good pick up and play experience. I just think it works really well for this generation. Some people may disagree and say it's a product of its time, but I mean, when you look back at like the reviews that it got back in the day, and even the ones that were on PSP and stuff like that, this is one of the best reviewed franchises in PlayStation history. So this is no slouch. This isn't just some deep cut I'm pulling out of my ass. This is really something that at one point was like a PlayStation defining franchise. And I think they need another PlayStation defining franchise that is not just your typical over-the-shoulder third-person cinematic game. We need more diversity in the portfolio, and I think this checks that box perfectly. So
yeah. I don't have a lot of experience with it, just demos that I've played. But anytime a racing game specifically comes out and does something unique and interesting, people are always talking about it. People are always trying to look at that genre and find something interesting, something new about it. And I think Wipeout would be a perfect fit for that, and I think it would do well. So my next game here this is going to be a weird one for a lot of people. Days Gone. I've always said there's games that always come out. For example, Crimson Desert. I always say that the sequel of this game could be really good. And I think Days Gone is a perfect fit for that. I think that it had some really good ideas. Characters weren't great, but the world and the world building I liked very much. And I think that with that in mind, I think that the sequel could have really found its footing and been something really interesting if given the opportunity to do that. So, funny enough, when the game came out, it kind of got lost in the shuffle, got compared to The Last of Us because The Last of Us was still kind of hot at the time. Unfairly so, because it's not what it was trying to be. I think now that genre and zombies have kind of died out, infusing that back into it, I think would be interesting. I think it would get people kind of back into that mode and exploring that open world with those zombies out there, the horde all coming towards you, new technology that would make those features even better. I would really like to see Days Gone come back. And that studio's searching for the next thing to do. Why not let them just do a sequel to this game? I think it could be really good. Were you a fan of Days Gone?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. Yeah. I got to it late, though. I didn't play it at launch because, admittedly, I kind of heard what the reviews said, and I was like, no, I'm good. I'm okay. Thank you. But when I got around to it eventually, I was like, oh, this is actually pretty good. This is pretty solid. Yeah. It's very polished. I think that it's not the redundancy in the portfolio that I think PlayStation thought it was with like comparing it to The Last of Us. It's a very different take on it. Was it perfect? No, but I think that it definitely had its own unique lane. And I think that should have not been just tucked away and cast to the side the way that it was, because I do think there was a missed opportunity to really keep that franchise alive and relevant. And at a time where The Last of Us is kind of just not around on the gaming front, boy, it would have been nice to have a Days Gone 2 by now. You know what I mean?
And it's so different. If we're looking at The Last of Us being like a drama film, Days Gone was a summer blockbuster,
Little known fact, Days Gone, Siphon Filter, same universe. I think we're onto something, man. We got to bring it back. Got to have a filterverse. You know what I'm saying?
There was Easter eggs and shit in that game.
A lot of them, yeah. And that's what I love. I love stuff like that. That's why I like Remedy so much, because what they do with Control and Alan Wake, oh my God, that stuff is like perfect. It's amazing.
The interconnectivity is awesome.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right, my third and final pick that I think definitely deserves a comeback is SOCOM U.S. Navy SEALs.
Hell yes. Full disclosure, that was my third game, but for the sake of having different picks, I went ahead and took that off the list. But absolutely, hell yeah.
Yeah, man. This one is this is the biggest no-brainer. I mean, if you're PlayStation and you're like, hey, let's do live service games, you should be doing a SOCOM by now. You should have already had one out by now, to be completely honest with you. There's no reason why you should be making fair games and not SOCOM U.S. Navy SEALs. There's no excuse for this, right? Now, again, for the uninitiated, tactical third-person shooter focused on U.S. Navy SEAL operations. So it had a single player, but it also had a multiplayer that was kind of the shit back then. And it was just one of the most revered online multiplayer experiences of its time on PS2 and, of course, on portable devices as well. I think you played a lot of, what was it, Fireteam Bravo?
Is that the one that came out on PSP?
That's what I'm thinking about, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I played all of them, but that's the one I played the most, dude. I had so much fun. And it's
just so addictive, man. It was like, kind of Counter-Strike, kind of not, kind of its own thing. And it was nothing but crack cocaine. As soon as you pop it on, man. It was so good. I think it would do great as a revival because of a lot of obvious reasons. Of course, I think the market would welcome it. I think also tactical shooters are kind of resurging a little bit. I think people are kind of over the twitchy chaos of a Call of Duty and want something that's a little bit more sophisticated. Communication first gameplay, I think that's something that we're starting to see a lot with like the extraction shooter genre. So I do think that there's more of a desire for team focused experiences where you have to work together and not just look for solo highlight reels, if that makes sense. It's a perfect live service foundation. New maps, clans, seasonal content, if done right, I think could be an amazing get for PlayStation. And
I agree.
And honestly, probably one of their highest grossing games if they really wanted to go there. So it's not just about nostalgia here. I think it's the multiplayer that people keep asking for but never get. And it's just a damn shame. It's a damn shame, man.
If they give it time and actually really put effort into it, it could be the Rainbow Six Siege, you know? I believe that very much. I think there's the name carries some weight. I think there's a lot of people out there of our age that will absolutely be there day one, and I think that the game will win over the younger crowd, the people who've never played one. I think that they'll see that and they'll really be interested in diving in there, because Warzone, Call of Duty has taken over all this so much so that there's people just constantly, consistently looking for something new. That's why games like Ready or Not, which isn't very good, is getting so much play out there. You know, it's because people are craving for something new within the shooter genre.
So to summarize, you brought Sly Cooper, infamous in Days Gone, to this conversation. I brought Siphon Filter, Wipeout, and SOCOM. Now, Pablo, we didn't just choose franchises that we think Sony should bring back. We also took some time to pick franchises that we think Sony should leave in the grave. Just put some flowers on it. Sing a little Bone Thugs, you know. So you picked one and I picked one. I had some other ones on the cutting room floor we can probably mention as like an honorable or dishonorable mention, I guess, in this case. But I want to hear your pick first. Tell me the PlayStation franchise, Pablo, that you think should stay dead.
So recently there was some news about a former dev of Naughty Dog that was apparently doing research, and people are speculating that's for a new Uncharted series. I think Uncharted needs to stay dead. Honestly, it's rare for a game series to be given the opportunity to really deliver a complete story. I think narratively, Naughty Dog really did a great job with Uncharted, getting Nathan Drake from the very first game all the way to the fourth game, and kind of seeing Nathan Drake grow up and be a family man, and having the last adventure with his brother. I think it was a really well told story. The problem is that gameplay wise, it hit a wall with Uncharted 2, Among Thieves. The game really didn't grow outside of that. They added a rope element that you could swing here and there, but I can only hear and see Nathan Drake slide down a couple of rocks and say, whoa, 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 so many times. And it would just be kind of, what would be the point of bringing back Uncharted? Are you going to continue the series? Why? It ended so nicely. Are you going to reboot it? Why? There's already games that exist that are still pretty playable today, specifically Uncharted 4. It just doesn't make a lot of sense for Naughty Dog to get involved, which it doesn't look like they will, but for PlayStation to put any kind of effort towards an Uncharted series when it's already there. It's there for your enjoyment. We don't need more of it because it's already been given to us narratively and gameplay wise. We know what those games are and what they're not, and there's not much there in terms of room to grow. We're just going to get another one of these games, and that doesn't interest me at all. And I think that Uncharted should, just never come back. Just stay there. And if you're all going to come back in 20 more years. Let my son play you when he's 20 years old. Not right now. We don't need this.
Man, while you were talking, I just heard the sound of tomatoes just getting hurled at your forehead, man. Let me play devil's advocate, right?
Sure,
Which
yeah.
some people would say this is probably the reason why they can bring it back, is maybe you give the reins of the series to Nathan Drake's daughter, and he's the old man kind of teaching her what to do. Don't get lost in this search, and do a little bit of what the Kratos and Atreus relationship is, just maybe less annoying and obnoxious. So maybe that's the lane that they can go in, and then she has a different type of skill set compared to Nathan Drake, where it's not just, climbing and hanging onto ledges with one hand and going whoa, whoa, whoa. But maybe she's got a different set of skills. I don't know. I'm just saying that's an inroad. So
let's say new story, new gameplay mechanic. How about just make a new game? Because then people are just going to complain. It's like, oh, this doesn't really feel like Uncharted. And then the whole story with the daughter, I think that's cool. I think that's the way that I would do it. But you're just rehashing plots again, because now she has to find her own way. She has Nathan Drake playing the Sully of the series, cool, but it just feels all the same. I'm not saying that it would come out and it would be terrible, but what I mean is PlayStation right now is they are stuck in a cycle of sequels over and over and over again. To get Uncharted back in here and restart another cycle of sequels of IP that haven't been dead that long, I don't know. It just feels kind of like redundancy, right?
I look at it a little differently. I see it as more of kind of a Todd Howard-like problem with like Neil Druckmann and Naughty Dog, right? Where Todd Howard's the brainchild behind, obviously Starfield and Fallout and the Elder Scrolls. But there's one him and there's all these franchises, right? So I feel like if they were to hand this IP off to a different lead and say, which
is what they seem to do.
Let's get your vision of what you think Uncharted can be in this era that we're in now as PlayStation, so that we keep that brand equity that we have for this IP alive. We don't just throw it away when we can do something with it. I think there's still potential to do something really cool there. And I've never known PlayStation to meet a franchise they wouldn't rehash if given the opportunity.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think it would be kind of a cash cow for them to bring back. So I see them doing it, but I can also understand why there's an audience who feels like, you know what, you put the period at the end of the sentence, you checked all the boxes, we got closure, everyone's living happily ever after, let's not touch it. But fair perspective. Not terrible. I mean, you still got some tomato juice running down your cheeks, but, you know, his face cheeks, not his ass cheeks. I ain't looking there, y'all. Don't do that. You know what? Watch out. All right, my pick for a PlayStation franchise that should stay dead. I think my pick is probably a little less controversial, but I think some nostalgia heads are probably going to be mad at me too. I chose Ape Escape. Yeah. I chose Ape Escape. Look, I understand. It's beloved. It's this quirky platformer. You're chasing and capturing monkeys using your dual analog controls. It's known for its humor, its experimentation, actually being one of the first true DualShock showcases back in the day. But I think that's almost exactly why I think it wouldn't work being revived. I've heard a lot of people say, we need another Ape Escape. But really, I think the core innovation just doesn't translate anymore. The dual stick control gimmick was revolutionary then, but it's the standard now. So the hook is kind of gone. I also think it lives in an awkward market space too, to be honest, where it's not premium enough to headline, but it's also not broad enough to compete with the giants in this space as well. So I just think that Sony already has better positioned mascots if they wanted to go down the let's revive a platformer route with either the Sly Coopers of the world like you've talked about, or even a Jack and Daxter or something like that. I just don't think this is the one you grab out of the pile and say, this is the one that belongs in 2026. It would be too weird to try and reinvent it as well. Like, you push it too far and then it loses its identity. You keep it the same and it feels dated. And I think just too much nostalgia would be doing the heavy lifting, because people would love the memory and the charm of the franchise, but that doesn't really guarantee modern engagement or anything. So I think to me, I look at Ape Escape as like the perfect time capsule. But that's exactly why you leave it alone.
Wasn't it featured in the PlayStation version of Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater?
Yeah. Lots of good callbacks to it. Even Astrobot had a little section for it too, which was really charming. But I think that's exactly where you leave it. You leave it right there. Yeah. It doesn't need too much more than that. It's just one of those nice little remember the times kind of callbacks that you do once in a while. Yeah,
and there's been rumblings and there's been a lot of fan casting saying that Team Asobi should make the next Ape Escape. I would hate for them not to make another Astrobot just to make another Ape Escape. That would be terrible. That'd be actually terrible.
That'd be really, really backwards, yeah. Let's talk about our honorable mentions real quick.
I had one, and then I took it off for petty reasons.
See what I mean, y'all?
That was Killzone. I had Killzone on there, but I was like, I'd rather play Killzone than play another Horizon game. So,
really?
Honestly, yes. Unfortunately for Killzone, it left so much on the table. It could have been something really good, and it had some really cool ideas, but it never really did anything that made it stand out.
All right, my honorable mention, I have Resistance here. Shut your face. Because I like Resistance a lot. I do. I really like Resistance a lot, and I thought Resistance 3 was incredible. I really did. But I just think when you try something 3 times and it doesn't catch, it tells you something, and I love the ideas behind it. I love the fact that they had a little bit of the same Ratchet and Clank-like creativity when it came to the weapons and stuff like that. And the narrative, especially with the third game, I thought was incredible. But I just don't think that the franchise ever really found its footing. I love the series personally, but I feel like if they were to bring it back in 2026, it would get just about the same reaction of like, it's just not.
Real quick, I will say I do have one more that should stay dead, and I think based on what we've seen in the modern era, it wouldn't work. I would say a game that needs to stay dead is Concord.
Yeah. See, that's nasty. See, you know what, Pablo's got the devil in him. He got nothing but the devil. He knows good and damn well nobody's going to be like, you know what we need to do, guys. Yeah, no.
But for sure.
All right, man. Well, those are the PlayStation franchises that we think should come back and should stay dead. But speaking of death, we do have a little bit more inside information on the death of The Last of Us Factions 2, because former director Vineet Agarwal, I'm probably butchering his name, apologies.
Vineet.
That dude
Agarwal,
revealed that The Last of Us Factions 2 was 80% finished and very close to done before Sony pulled the plug. And he also alleged that he found out about the cancellation a mere 24 hours, Pablo, before the public announcement in late 2023. So I know it's kind of an old story, but the fact that this just came out recently, I think, is really interesting, especially as a lot of conversations continue to swirl around PlayStation's live service strategy.
Apparently, it was going to be something sort of like Extraction-like.
I saw that,
Well, we're looking at the history of those games. I don't know. It seems a little bit like it wasn't a guaranteed success. This was something that they were going to have to work for. One of the things that I saw when I was doing a little bit of research for the story was there was a story out that Bungie came in. That was all kind of conflated and more speculation. What Bungie did is sit down with Naughty Dog and tell them what it was going to take to support the game and how long. They only released Destiny 1 and 2 since they've been independent. And so it looks like it spooked Naughty Dog and Sony a little bit, and they decided to pull the plug like this. So I sympathize with this, but I also think that at the end of the day, this was probably best for Naughty Dog specifically, so they can continue making those games that we love. What do you think?
Really all depends on what PlayStation's expectations were, if you ask me. I think if they were expecting a game that was going to just exist in perpetuity and last for 5, 6, or 7 years, and if Naughty Dog didn't have the chops to make that happen, then that's definitely cause for cancellation if you don't think you can get there. I'm also of the belief that not every multiplayer game has to be this thing that exists in relative perpetuity either. I'm not saying that we need to go back to the old days, because that can sound very antiquated and very out of touch, but I think we should go back to the old days sometimes with multiplayer games that have like a year or 2 year long shelf life, and then that's just kind of it. And it doesn't need to be this thing that has to exist forever, because as we all know, in the live service space, there's only so much of the pie you're going to get as it is, because Fortnite still exists, because Apex still exists, because all these well-known, revered franchises still exist and are still alive and well. So you're never going to compete with them. So if you can at least do something that has enough legs to get you through 1 or 2 years, that would have been cool enough. And I think it would have been nice to have a Factions 2 exist when the HBO series first launched, so that there's something actually new to engage with and interact with in this IP, instead of throwing another remastered remake of a remaster at us and saying, here you go. So I just think that there's a need for newness in this Last of Us IP that we're not getting. And I know recently Neil Druckmann's been teasing some stuff, showing some sketches and saying we're alluding to a part 3 coming at some point, but by now I feel like having something like this exist, even for a short window of time, would have been really nice, because it would have helped this franchise still feel like it's got breath in it. And right now, it just feels like we're kind of sitting here in this no man's land, trying to sustain ourselves with an HBO series that I think has taken some steps backwards, especially with season 2. And so now you're kind of stuck in this. The next game is Intergalactic, so guess we're going to be waiting for the PS6 and skip an entire generation with nothing from The Last of Us, which I think is a real detriment to the PS5 generation, which it represents a bigger issue with this generation overall of just not getting a lot of what we should have had by now. To me, just stings a little more because it doesn't help the cause.
I agree with everything you said, but I do kind of put the blame a little bit on Naughty Dog, in that seemingly they wanted to create something that was going to last a long time. And instead of, it was called Factions 2, that's kind of how we referred to it, but it might have been something else entirely. Yeah. Instead of kind of focusing on a actual Factions 2, a multiplayer Suite 4 maybe even, as an update to The Last of Us 2 with the 3 or 4 different versions of that game that came out in the last couple of years, like to add it to that, but instead they wanted to do something a little bit bigger, a little bit more Destiny-like, and so it feels like, they had some ambitions, but they didn't really understand what that meant on the long run. So I agree, though. I would love to see an actual factions too, multiplayer, get in there and actually advance on the formula of the first factions, because I thought that was really fun.
Yeah, and that's, you could be right. It could just be an issue of them scoping out a game they couldn't handle. That's entirely possible. I'm just a little disappointed with Naughty Dog overall this generation. I mean, I am really hoping that Intergalactic turns out great. I think there's a lot of potential there. I can't wait to see more of it, but it better. They got to put out something and it's got to hit. But yeah, it's sad to see. It's good to get a little bit more clarity on it. It stings a little bit more. It reopened the wound a little bit, for me, because me and some friends of mine swore by the first one. This is what happens sometimes, man. I would love to see them take another stab at it, though, down the road. I would.
I do, too. I would, too.
It's hard for me to reconcile canceling a game that was in such demand. Like, people were dying for this game. So who is this fictional audience that Sony thought they were going to disappoint? I just don't know. It's weird. It's all weird. But, hopefully they're more thoughtful and tactful about what they approve in the future, what they greenlight, what they cancel. But as we've seen in recent weeks, studios are still getting shuttered. Projects are still not getting greenlit. So there's a lot of work left to do inside of PlayStation's first party to kind of get things back on the right track, unfortunately. But look, man, I think that is going to do it for this week's episode of the PS Files. Really good conversations this week for sure. Really fun to take that trip down memory lane with some old PlayStation classics.
Absolutely.
We'll do more of that in the future if there's a good demand for it. But before all of you leave and walk out of our lives, be sure to follow our show before you go. Really appreciate it. We drop new episodes every single Tuesday, so please stay tuned. It helps a new show like us get some traction, go up the algorithms, because Apple Podcasts got beef with a lot of new podcasts these days, and it's hard to kind of get that visibility. So your support, whether it's listening to the episode, leaving a 5-star rating, that goes a long way with helping us reach more people like yourself, who are these grown PlayStation gamers who don't do all the console warring, you just like talking shop and having those fun conversations about the past, the present, the future of PlayStation. So if you enjoy yourself, you know what to do. Stick around. But until next time, as always, stay safe, save often, and play on. We'll see you next week. Take care.
Peace out.